whispers in the deep dark night.
Welcome to the AI Riff, where we cut through the noise and break down the top AI stories of the week with real talk and real relevance. No hype, no fluff, just a vendor-agnostic take on what's actually shaping your world today. Whether you're in tech, lending, or just trying to make sense of the headlines, we're here to separate the wheat from the chaff and the facts from the fiction. Now let's get this started with your hosts, Mario Diabenedetto, Rob Katz, and me, Kyle Myers. We hope you enjoy this episode of the AI Riff.
And this is episode 52, and they said we weren't playing with a full deck.
Yes, we do.
No, yeah, but there's a joke. No. There's a joker in the deck today. Who's
three clowns outside the circus.
That's then you invited a wild card, so
invited a wild card and Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Rob invited a friend, Jeff Hertzell, who is has been in the industry for as long as most of us, and brings a lot to the table. And in the reverse mortgage, right? That's the mortgages that go backwards, right? Is that they back up?
That's exactly the way everyone understands them. Yeah. Unfortunately.
So, I always thought you'd look like Tom Selleck, but you kind of, Tom Selleck, you got a little full on.
A little grayer.
Yeah, you got the mustache.
Yeah. So we've been in the pod for a minute, and Kyle's already brought up two of the biggest myths of reverse mortgages. So
yeah.
So maybe we'll have to weave that in to the article because it has complete relevance to what we're about to talk about.
Well, it does because it does.
So Mario, on that note, what is the topic of today?
Yeah, what is the topic, Mario?
Well, the topic was forced down our throats in our last episode by Rob,
yes,
who insisted that we talk about data centers because they are a glorious, glorious thing and loved by all. Mm-hmm. And so today we speak of data centers. Because there's some interesting stats. There's something like $600 billion in data center investment this year, 2026, expected to go up over north of a 1.1 trillion next year. That's a lot of construction. That's a lot of chips. That's a lot of water. There's a lot to be said here. And so, there's a lot of places we can go, but I'm going to leave it there and see what you guys think because we all did a little bit of reading, of course, to try to make sure we were brushed up on the latest.
Can I ask the first question? I thought we debunked the lot of water idea. I thought we said that there was information out there that said they recycled water to keep the data centers cooled. Is there new information that says
that's part of the reason why I forced this topic down our throats is what is the truth about it? And so from the research that we did, or the research that I did that we shared, is the truth is the chips that are used for doing AI work, like all chips, generate heat. And one of the biggest differences when you think data center from pre-AI days, and I've been in plenty of them. I'm sure you guys have toured data centers before. You open the door and there's racks of servers and there's backup generators and battery plants and all that other stuff. Those servers in those racks had a couple of chips in each server. And when it comes to AI, when you talk about the NVIDIA chips and servers, there's many chips in those, taking up the same square footage. And each chip generates heat. All chips generate heat. And so the challenge that data centers have is twofold. One is, how are they powering all of these servers and all of these chips? And more importantly, how are they handling the heat that is being created by them? And there are a couple of methods by which you can pull the heat away from the boards and pull the heat away from the chips so that things continue to run. And the most common way is by transferring that heat through water and having the water evaporate. And the evaporation of the water is, I don't know thermodynamics, but it's a thermodynamic, science above my head, that takes the heat away. So not all data centers use water to dissipate the heat. Not all water evaporation systems are built the same. So there is no truth to every time you do a ChatGPT search, you burn a glass of water. There may be some data centers that are inefficient that way, that burn through a glass of water to do to do the cooling that's needed for however much the chip heated up when somebody did a thing. There's also data centers that are incredibly efficient in their heat, that don't use water or very little water in their transfer. So the truth is, globally, yes, water is used and evaporated to cool and remove the heat from the chips, from the data centers. It is not universal, and there is no one measurement you can say of how much water is wasted on average per query. It's just not a realistic stat.
What's the impact on global warming with these heated chips?
Well,
with
there
all
are
this
a lot of
heat,
chips in there.
Could it be contributing?
I think that global warming is probably a separate factor, but it does bring in, because it goes into what I was going to ask, which is, what about location of these data centers? If you go up into the far reaches of Canada, of Greenland, of Iceland, of Sweden, Finland, up there, why is it so hard to build the data centers up there where you could actually have the outside air help cool?
Yep. So I'm gonna answer both questions. So Jeff, I know your question was semi tongue in cheek, maybe not at all, maybe it was fully serious. Well, I said there's two important things that you need for a data center.
Yeah.
The first was power.
Yep.
So Kyle, where are they going to get their power in those areas? They have to go build power plants, nuclear, whatever, wind, whatever it's got to be. They've got to have the power grid infrastructure first to be able to bring power to what's there. And Jeff, I think the second answer is, the impact on climate change is, we're producing a boatload of additional power and draining the grid. And absolutely that, in my opinion, because I believe in science, is going to contribute to climate change at a measurable capacity. But I don't think people are looking at that as well. I'm sure there are groups, but that's not making the news as much, because it's a lot easier to go, oh my God, every time you ask GPT a question, you lose a glass of water. So,
but it is, because I think on the power side, just like you said, not all data centers are going to use the same amount of water, et cetera, et cetera. The way these things are being powered is also has a pretty large variety. And so Elon is in the news for all the wrong reasons, because he's got these super disgusting generators, and he did it because he could do it fast. He stood up a bunch of really dirty generators that make a crap ton of noise in a place where they were having trouble suing him out of doing it, but he stood up a data center in 0 time. When we first started, a lot of the early contracting by the big LLMs in the US, Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, the first contracts they wrote to get power were all contracts for alternative energy. So they were basically subsidizing building out the alternative energy capacity in our country, albeit self-serving. But now, because they can't wait, because that all takes time to come online, you have Google and Anthropic buying up Elon's capacity over at XAI because he's decided he doesn't really need it at the moment, right? So it's like, it really depends, right? You can have really dirty data centers, and you can have data centers that may actually be contributing to us getting off fossil fuels, theoretically.
The interesting thing is that when going through the articles that that kind of prompted this, it's all talking about new centers, right? So much has been learned to make them efficient, don't have to burn as much water, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the focus was on, why are we doing tax incentives? They only bring in so many jobs. And it reminds me kind of the reverse space, where the blame is the way that you word it to get attention is all of the cost to the taxpayers. But I don't think it's a cost. It's revenue they didn't get versus cost. right? So they're actually still making some money, but not nearly as much if they had not had the incentives. So it's really about the growing space, right?
And it also depends on the state and how they budget. Do they budget future forecast, or do they budget previous year and then spend that money? Some states, I think Idaho maybe does something like that. They see what their costs were, what their tax revenues were, and then they set their budget based on that for the next year. But other states run deficits and can, set their budget to whatever they want. So you could get into a bit of a conundrum when you have a contract with a state for a data center to come in and you've given them tax breaks, and then you still assume that you're going to make certain amounts of dollars and you spend them in social programs and or infrastructure or whatever you're selling. I don't know if that impacts municipal bonds and things like that, but your state is now wants that money, but they're like, wait a second, we never had that money. To your point, Jeff, that money was never our money because we said we weren't going to collect it, but they just missed the opportunity. There's an opportunity cost of 1.3 trillion in Texas and
The
two, 1.3 billion. Sorry.
So yes to everything. I'm not going to disagree with anything you guys have said. In all the research and reading that I did, though, I still don't understand why there's an incentive at all. These data centers do not produce jobs, and they take away water and power.
Right. And so the answer is we want to win the AI race. That's it.
But I don't even know what that means.
I don't either. I don't think any of those states do, but they're threatened with that the whole time. We can't let China win, right? We can't let China win. It's like, what?
So the base, let's go back to the base requirement here, right? The build out is specifically predicated on this notion that in order to continue to train what are effectively larger and larger, more complicated versions of each LLM, you need more GPUs. So their forecast for their future model training, just to teach it how it works and test it and retrain it, their forecast is that they need X% more, capacity to do all this. So it's the LLMs themselves and everybody that's on that bandwagon who's saying, we don't have a choice. If we want to make that next version that, is after this one we just released, we've got to plan ahead and start building that out. Now, that alone has got to be suspect, right? You have to believe that people are actively working to say, how can I train an AI model and not have to keep scaling linearly, right? The number of chips.
But tell me why that's a driver for a tax incentive for a state to give tax breaks to a data center being built.
Yeah, tax breaks are typically for people when you give more than you take. Like, you're giving to the state something in return for a tax break. And
go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say it's we'll build this in your state and we'll provide you $5 million in revenue versus the full tax, which would be $20 million in revenue. So the incentive is to get them to get that $5 million, right, is to negotiate this. But Kyle, I think you brought it up because if they'll go to a different state, then you get zero. You don't even get the $5 million.
Well, but the incentives, just so everyone on the pod understands, the biggest incentive tax break that these data center builders get is they don't pay state sales tax for the equipment that they're purchasing. And Mario, you started off saying there's $600 billion being spent on infrastructure. If it's all being spent on states where the states are like, and we're not going to charge you sales tax, there's no sales tax being charged on the $600 billion of purchases. So so maybe Jeff, what you're saying is, well, it's not 100%. They're getting an 80% discount on the tax. So maybe that's where that's coming from. But the cost of the loss of power and water, and the fact that in the end, there's no jobs. I mean, the biggest data centers have 100 employees. The typical data center has 20.
When they're stood up, there's a lot of construction jobs that go into it.
Temporary. And they're happening so fast that they're bringing people in from out of state to do the construction, right? They're building, they're setting up.
And people go down. Why are they putting them in tents? Why are they putting them in tents? Because they're going to be gone. Right. Well, and they're going to be gone as soon as it's built.
Yeah.
So you're not you're providing a temporary increase in restaurants getting business, stores getting business, everything's temporary increase. So you are getting the increase in sales tax for that. So you have to do the analysis of it costs X dollars for the things that you're going to do to build this, but the people that you bring into the state are going to spend X dollars because they are working there, and they're going to spend that much more, and they'll get sales tax from all the businesses they support for that period of time.
So can we hit the other side? Because you're talking about these incentives that they're giving, but part of, I thought the reason we wanted to get into this was the not in my backyard part of this that is now coming full circle, because the number I saw was 71% of people oppose having data centers in their communities. And there's a lot more communities who are doing the opposite now, who are saying, no, we're not going to allow a data center. And they're actually putting regulations in place effectively preventing data centers from coming into their backyard. I think for all the reasons you've said, right? Which is like, what's the real upside here? And we don't want to be contributors to, killing the environment, using up all the water, yada,
Go
yada.
ahead, Jeff.
This is a part that gets me. This is like, we need prisons, but dang it, I don't want one near me. Right?
Yeah.
Like every single person that's saying most of them need what is going to be happening in data centers wherever they may end up being. Right? So you just open your phone, and whether you want to or not, it's using an AI somehow to come up with some results, and people are going to use it. They just don't, it just shocks me.
Well, and so on that note, I think we can all agree that what is likely to happen is exactly what happens with prisons and airports and everything else. They're going to go in the poor communities.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
The places that have the most need for any financial help, but also the least likely to be able to fight it.
That's right. And then you got to stop and go, I saw a headline flash through. I should have clicked on the article. I believe that I live in Arizona, and that our governor signed something saying that there's going to be no tax incentives for data centers in the state. And I thought I applauded that, because I still don't understand why the incentive is there. But I also applauded because why would you build a data center where it's 118 degrees?
Yeah, and no water.
Cool it, right?
And water rights, which are really tough to come by.
That's right. There's no water, and it's 118 degrees. I want to touch on another thing, because Mario, you touched on it. And this was one of the questions I had why I wanted to do this deep dive and do this pod, is what part of AI is using all the power? And I was shocked to learn that it is not the training, that the training for a very intensive period of time uses an unbelievable amount of power to train the model for a limited period of time. And then once they release it, it is Jeff, to your point, every device, everybody's using it now. Everybody's touching it. So you've got the training and you have the inference. And the inference stage is us asking questions and having it evaluate and return the answer. And it is the inference that is using, I think the stat in one of the papers we read was over 90% of the chip utilization is on the inference, not on the training side. So we all got to stop using it if you want, to have an impact. And you can't avoid it now. Because everywhere you go, it's AI.
Just use ChatGPT 2.1 then. It uses less tokens.
Yeah.
Well, so this is the same thing as the speed of transferring data, right? Pipelines can only get so big, right? And they were trying to cram the same size of everything through the same pipeline. How did they finally get those pipelines more efficient? They made the data pieces smaller. So it was going no faster, but smaller packets meant more low, which means they get there. So ultimately, if you get into the efficiencies of all these models and all those other problems, outside of this that they're trying to solve, once they figure out how to not have all that wasted and retries and recalcs and everything else, it will help reduce, the heat necessary to generate them.
That's a great point. I do want to jump in, and one of the things that I took the time to learn over the past week was using Markdown, the Markdown formatted files, a file that ends with .md, instead of using anything else when you're going to drop something into a prompt, is unbelievably more effective in token utilization. And to that end, Microsoft on GitHub has a free app. It's a Python script. You got to understand Python to get it installed. But I can now right click on any document type in my Windows Explorer and have it convert to Markdown. And as an example, I took a Word document that was nicely structured with headers and all that other stuff. That was 192K and converted to Markdown, and it was 3K. And if I drop a Word document into ChatGPT, it has to do all the work of understanding the content. If you drop a Markdown file in, the content's there structured the way that it needs to do it. And it's a huge savings. So Microsoft is really pushing now forever. It's a free tool. Yes, take the time to figure out how to get it installed and working, all that other stuff. There's free tools online too. There's Word2MD, I think is .com, which is a free site where you can upload a Word document and convert it. My problem with that is I got some confidential documents. I don't want to run through this. And so the thing I run on my computer now is just all done locally. But it's
nice.
But Jeff, it's to your point. If we can all start to get smarter about the prompts we're putting in and the files we're uploading and make it use fewer tokens. And Mario's laughing because it's all about tokens, right? This is what we've been talking about.
I'm laughing because we're all inherently lazy, and asking us to do that is like a joke because people are just like it. The reason it converts Word and PowerPoint and PDF into something it can understand is because we're all too lazy to do it. We just want to drop something in there. So it's sad that that's the case, right? Because you're right. It would be great if, we all just did the most efficient process, but
well, and ultimately, right, that's what they're going to end up doing is you're going to upload things, and behind the scenes, before it does anything, it's going to maybe try to convert it into a Markdown, which is compacting it, and then shove it through the model.
So I'm gonna try to exit question us, right? Where Jeff, I'll just try to get you guys to take a quick shot at answering, and I'll try not to conflate too many things because I do that. So in the SpaceX IPO, right? SpaceX just IPO'd, going gloriously in its first few days. SpaceX had leased, just prior to its IPO, had leased its XAI data center space to Anthropic for some big number, and then leased a bunch of space to Google for some big number. And then I heard Google's paying quite a bit more per whatever, CPU, however they rent it, than Anthropic. Because Google owns 6% of SpaceX, and they want their numbers to look good.
Wow.
So there's this, and if you haven't heard it, there's this whole circular thing about everybody's basically paying everybody in the same circle to buy chips, use chips, build data centers, so that's a roundabout, exit question is from our gut feel, from what are we really going to double the amount of data center next year? Or is this really going to, something's going to happen? There's going to be a reason why people don't need it as much. Something is going to happen, and it's like, no, we built enough data centers, or we're close.
I'll go first. I'm gonna steal Jeff's thunder because he already said it earlier. You can't escape it, man. It's everywhere. My Peloton bike got an update, and they increased my monthly rate by $10 a month because now it's AI powered. So now, what I now know is when I pick what rod I'm going to go on, it tells me whether I'm going to work harder or less hard than average. Thanks. That wasn't worth $10. I didn't ask for it, but it's everywhere. AI showing up everywhere. Everyone's putting it in all their apps, and yeah. So
can we do a separate episode on AI I didn't need?
That would be awesome.
Yeah, AI didn't want.
That's right. That's right.
The AI
so that's my long answer to. I think that the demand for it, and now that I know that 90% of all the energy and data center requirements are coming from the usage of it, not the training of it, I think it's going to be built. I think we're going to run out of power is going to be the limiting factor. So,
yeah, I think that it's going to at least double in size over time, but the processing power, whatever you want to call it, is going to 100-fold because they'll get Markdown efficient, but so many more things are going to happen AI that they're going to double it in terms of centers, but in terms of usage and everything else that it produces is going to be way beyond.
Yeah, and I think we're at a foreseeable increase in data centers at a declining rate in the next year or two. I think the declining rate will start because of regulation, because of public opinion, because of water, because of climate, because of all these things will become important enough that people will say, okay, AI race, I get it, but we've given you the runway. Let's figure out how to do it on what we have. To Jeff's point, let's make it better instead of making it bigger and using more data centers. So I think it's more, but at a declining rate.
I, I'm kind of with you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say before episode 100 of this podcast, we will see in the news that image of the half-built data center that has been abandoned because there's no longer a demand for it. Plus, although it's not happening next year, Elon says he's putting them in space. So
Yeah.
who needs them in your backyard?
Well, I got to say, my Klarna prediction, like yours, was not quite as accurate.
What is Klarna at right now?
$17.78. So
Close to 100. So close.
I'm going to look at the 1 year return, and I was only 61% off. Only.
Yeah.
I actually, that was to get to even. So technically, I was about 1,061% off.
To be fair, I never win at the horse races either, so don't take my prediction.
Okay,
right.
You never bet on the 4-horse. But on that note, I think we've walked the dog. We've gotten back to the house. We're already shut off the earbuds. So on that note, I'm Kyle Myers.
I'm Rob Katz.
I'm Jeff Birdsell.
And I'm still Mario DeBenedetto.
Oh, I was out of sync. That didn't work. Do it again.
Didn't sync up. You're still Mario.
I can't still be Mario DeBenedetto twice.
Yes, you can.
And still Mario DeBenedetto.
We'll see you.
Wires hum like whispers in the deep dark night. Shadows dancing strange under neon light. Digits spinning fast like a gambler's hand. The clock chimes change, it's the new command. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Binary prophets riding fading streams. Data flows like rivers fueling all our dreams. Simple or savvy, it's all the same path. Under skies of innovation, we redraw the map. Oh, the future calls with a voice so clear. A melody of progress in every ear. No turning back, the wheels in motion. A tide of cold like the endless ocean. Set the rhythm to the beat of change we sing. Every click and hum a key that rings. A revolution, quiet, but it's vast. Building empires where echoes of futures cast.